Hi, I'm Yulia, and this is Burning Questions. The topic that set the internet on fire this week is what is Orban's relationship with Trump? Was he really the new president elect's first phone call post finding out that he's going to be president again? And does Orban actually have influence on Trump when it comes to Ukraine and world affairs? And helping us today is going to be a Hungarian expert who is also Ukrainian.
Hello, Tibor Tomp. I am a head of a Hungarian community and Kiev region. I was born in Transcarpathia, but I've been living in Kiev for 45 years.
Amazing.
And our Hungarian community, all Ukrainians, but with Hungarian roots, consist of today, unfortunately, not more than 45 persons. But before Russian aggression, this community contains more than 500, unfortunately. But you know, war is also created this problem, this disruption for us, and it's a really disaster for all our community.
So there have been, when Trump was elected, the first phone call he made was allegedly to Viktor Orban. Orban recently allegedly made a phone call to Zelensky, and he offered Zelensky to do a Christmas peace deal, which Zelensky obviously refused. And of course, there is no desire whatsoever in the Ukrainian government to work with Hungary for, I guess, obvious reasons in the past 2.5 years. And there is this idea that Trump and Orban are creating this type of trap for Zelensky where they're going to be continuously pushing peace on him. He's going to be continuously declining it because obviously it's not a just peace for Ukraine. And that way they're going to be portraying the issue of peace not being made as Zelensky not liking the conditions and Ukraine consistently rejecting them. So that's kind of where I would want to go with this conversation and sort of realize, what is the relationship between Trump and Orban? Are these rumors? Do they have basis? And things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understood, and it's same as a conspirology because I've spoken as some of journalists and specialist experts in the United States, and they told me it's a huge question and uncertainty about the connection, Orban connection to Trump. And it's a real conspirology because Orban has visited by that time Mar-a-Lago, Florida, but maybe 99% it's without any meeting with Trump because it's without any spots by that time about this meeting in the United States media. Unfortunately, 99% Orban's statements is not true. It's only ideology, only some statements without any basement. And all these basements directed to Orban's people's Orban elections because today Orban and his party, Fidesz, really they are in very difficult situation. They have been governed Hungary as a country more than 14 years. But today, his governance, Orban's governance, really challenged by Peter Magyar, real Hungarian aristocracy and political leader. And according to latest sociology survey, uh, Peter Magyar and his party, TISA, it's acronyms as a respect and freedom. But this party today has 42% supporters, but Orban only 27. It means Orban's power under threat.
But wouldn't it be so in Hungary today? It's not necessarily quite a democracy, right? It's a democracy with a spice of Orban's not a dictatorship, but Orban's sort of iron fist on power. So even if someone has 46% of support, do you think it's feasible that they can actually take the power away from Orban in a democratic election?
Yura, you know, you are very charming and very warm. Why? Because it's really dictatorship. What we have Hungary today, it's a dictatorship, and Orban is a fascist. He's a neo-fascist leader, the only neo-fascist leader in Europe.
Yeah.
And you are right. Unfortunately, it will be very hard to beat Orban in a real democratic election. But I hope Hungary is a part of Europe, is a part of European Union, and it will be unbelievable to beat the most powerful young generation, Hungarian generation. By the way, 90% of Hungarians from 18 to 35 years really support not Orban, support Peter Magyar. And I hope we will have these really political changes 1.5 years later.
So that brings me to my next question then. We have seen, I know that Russia has quite a grip on Hungary. Russia has quite a grip on Orban because obviously Russia helps Orban stay in power the same way that they do with, let's say, the Georgian Dream Party and Georgia and with all of the other kind of satellite countries that they coexist with in a sphere of influence, right? We have seen Russia's complete failure in Romania recently because there was a candidate that obviously was paid by Russia to kind of emerge in the social media and take power, and the Romanian court said, no way, we're not going to be letting this this round of elections pass through because obviously it's foreign interference and we're not going to allow it. In Georgia, the Georgian Dream, obviously, in the same way as Orban took power by just deciding that they're going to stay in power, and Georgian people are not having it, and they're protesting more like Ukraine in 2014 than they are like Belarus in 2020. Do you think that with this in mind, with Russia kind of crumbling all over the world, where, you know, Assad just fell through, and that was Russia's huge and only Middle Eastern ally, and also a huge point of influence, Georgia not going to their expectations, Romania not going to expectations, do you think Orban is shaking in his boots thinking that he's next?
Yeah, you are right, but sorry, but only partly. Why? Because Georgia not is a part of European Union, but Hungary is a real part of European Union. And fortunately, Russia is much more further from Hungary than Georgia first. And Orban's institution, yes, he's a dictatorship and also a very strong, bad leader, but all Hungarian institutions today under European pressure. I hope, and I think you know about that Hungary today don't have any support, subsidiaries, and fundraised funding from the European Union. European Union has frozen by the time more than 20 billion euros for Hungary. And these funds are really necessary for Hungary economies because Hungary from European Union is nothing. It's impossible to survive Hungary economies without European investments, without European economic supports.
Yeah, well, Hungary is one of the largest European economic receivers and one of the smallest economic inputs, which makes sense. It's kind of every time I have spoken to an expert on Hungary, it's always the same conclusion, right? Like Orban does not want the European order in his country. He wants the European money, though. But do
Oh, yes, 100%.
But do average Hungarians feel, so you know how we talk about sanctions on Russia and how Russians are not feeling the sanctions, right? Even though they will, but they're not feeling the sanctions because they have been so poor that it's hard to sort of get, it's hard to get below that level. So that's why they're not necessarily feeling it, but we're seeing that Russia's economy is crumbling. Does an average Hungarian feel these cuts from the European Union, or is it just on the global government level and the global country development level?
Yes, Hungarian middle civic persons, Hungarian citizens, more of them really feel this strongest and hardest problem what Hungary has had for the last 10 years. What I mean, Orban created by his ruling more than 3 million beggars. You know, these 3 million beggars had by today not more than 30% of minimum wages than European citizens. Hungary today has the highest inflation, not only the European Union, but also in Europe. Hungary today has for energetic price much more higher than Ukraine, which Ukraine, as you know, we are in a very critical situation. But gas price for the middle Hungarian citizens 10 much more higher than in Ukraine.
10 times higher. Yeah, well, Orban is really
Yeah,
fighting
10
for
times higher.
Orban is really fighting for the right to buy cheap Russian gas. That's that's very evident. As to Peter Magyar, what is his stance on Hungarian politics within the realm of the war in Ukraine, within everything that's going on in Europe? Is he much different from Orban in this particular kind of framework?
Yes, you are right, Julia, because I've met Mr. Magyar this year. He visited Kiev in July after the barbaric attacks against the children clinic in Kiev. And I spoke with him 15 minutes, and he told me that he really supports Ukrainians against a Russian aggression, and he is working now as a leader of Hungarian TISA party in European Parliament for Ukrainians, and 100% will support in after elections when he will win this election, and also he supports Ukrainian not only ideology, but also he supports with medicines, generators, and other necessary things which needs for Ukrainian hospitals.
Well, so there is also, outside of just it being difficult with Orban or things changing in the country, there is also an anti-incumbency trend worldwide that we're seeing where people are not wanting to vote for the incumbent presidents or parties that are already in power because they want change, they want something different. So you are correct, and there is a very big chance that Hungarians are among those as well. What is sort of like, what can Orban do in the next year and a half to try and interfere with the democratic elections? Because you said earlier, right? For instance, in Georgia, it's easier to falsify an election than it is in Hungary, for instance, because there is the European Commission presiding over it, right? And if the results seem in any capacity wrong, then this election is going to be thrown out, and there is going to be the European Commission kind of interfering, right? What can he do to ensure that he stays in power, hypothetically?
Not only hypothetically, but in really, he massively attacked and by almost all Hungarian media, internet resource, newspapers, TV channels, special for his propaganda. And yesterday, he directed Hungarian academies to sell all funds and all buildings, all real estates from a Hungarian Science Academy. Why? Because all these institutions will be directed a special committee, and this special committee will be ruled by, by Orban people. And also this situation will be in the next 1.5 year in education institutions and in medical institution also. I think everywhere. And unfortunately, you are really right. This is a real threat for democratic elections in Hungary. But we need to support European Union. I think we need to link, collaborate with Peter Magyar and with strong European leaders to support Hungarian democracy.
Well, then the question here is, what can Peter Magyar and what can the world do to ensure that Hungarian elections are running fairly, right? And do you think he has a real chance in winning, or is it wishful thinking, provided the situation that Orban created in the country unchecked?
Julia, I think what you are doing now, it is also a great help, because you are informed the whole world about the policy and what necessary to do. I think real information, critical information, what you are doing now, it's a real help for Hungarian democracy, because I hope this our talking will be broadcasted all over the world, and people will see what's the real situation in Hungary, and what will do, first of all, support Hungarian democracy from information side.
But how did it happen, right? I'm sure that a lot of people would want to know. So the EU is a democratic union, right? And the requirements of a country coming into the EU is it has to be a democracy. How did it happen that a country turned into a dictator fascist regime in the European Union, and it is going unchecked for decades now?
This situation has a deep historical root. Why? Because Hungary, unfortunately, haven't got before a real democracy, haven't had democratic institution as had other countries. And by the way, Hungary had longest historical periods of serf, and serf system really rebuilt by Orban today. It's a first reason. And the second reason, unfortunately, European institution hasn't been so strong and prepared for the Orban dictatorship. And Orban was before as a real populist, and after populism, he's created, unfortunately, neo-fascism.
Well, yeah, it seems to be a trend in quite a few countries worldwide. Coming back to populism, actually, that's where Trump plays quite a big role. You mentioned earlier that it's conspiracy theories about potential Trump and Orban creating sort of a trap for Zelensky. However, what is the relationship between Trump and Orban like? Because it does seem like Trump favors dictatorial figures that seem to.
Sorry.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry. Yeah.
He tends to favor dictatorial figures that exude, I guess, power in his understanding, right? And it does seem like this is not the first visit of Viktor Orban to Mar-a-Lago. He was also speaking at the National Rifle Association convention. He seems to have quite a long relationship with the Republican Party in general. Do you think he has any sort of influence on the American Republicans and their view of Ukraine as such?
No, I think Orban has nothing to do with American Republicans. He visited Republicans paying a lot of money, special for this visit. And also, I know it's told me some Hungarian journalists, when he visited these events, he took some pictures, and that's it, not more. Special for his media, for his election campaign. And, Hungary and Orban economy is a peanuts. When we see the USA economy and USA system, and if you remember, one time Trump didn't know who is Mr. Orban. He said that he is maybe from Turkey and Hungary bordered with Russia, etc., etc. And I think when Trump will be inaugurated after 20th January, he won't mention Orban because he doesn't need Orban supporters, and but Orban really would like to be a part of Trump because he is totally isolated from Europe and from the whole democratic world.
I see. So it's more of like Orban chasing Trump in order to find his next kind of buddy to clutch onto, and to him it probably seemed like he might win Trump's favors based on how he rules the country, because Trump tends to be kind of warmer to dictator figures. Interesting. What about the rumor, or I guess a widely reported situation, that the first phone call after Trump won was to Orban?
It's also same as a conspiracy, and it also under the very very unbelievable, and it's information not from me, but also from Hungarians, which who knows Orban policy and his attitude. I think it's nothing then nothing connect with truth.
It's actually very interesting because this conversation is giving me a lot of insight into sort of how things are built in terms of media and perception in Hungary. I mean, I do know a fair bit about Hungary. Obviously, it's our neighbor. And even if I didn't want to know, I need to know because, you know, we do share a border and there have been disputes with Zakarpattia, I suppose, only on words, but there has always been that in the air. And of course, I'm from Lviv, so our history is Austrian-Hungarian Empire. So again, you know, I do need to know more about Hungary than I guess I know even from folklore a lot about Hungary. But it's interesting to sort of see that Orban. Well, there is lots of, if compared to Russia, there is lots of lies in Putin's sphere, right? But Putin seems to still have like a standing in the midst of his sort of his not administration but sort of like the apparatus, right? And it does seem that he still has like kind of respect and there is still this apparatus going. From what I'm hearing from you in Hungary, it seems like Orban is in fact on a shaky ground, and it seems like there is no support for him from Europe. There is no real support from him from people, no matter how much he buys out and no matter how much he's trying to portray a different situation. And he's kind of lost because Putin is not necessarily a friend or a helper to him anymore, because Putin is crumbling himself, and that is a person he seems to have bet on in order to keep his regime going. And it does look like he's kind of lost at this point. It's almost one of those situations where, you know, if we weren't talking politics, I would like feel bad for him. You know, it seems like he just sort of made a lot of very wrong moves and now is scrambling to fix them. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yeah, you know, I would like to mention you. I also I was born in Transcarpathia and grown up in Transcarpathia, not far from your native Lviv, but Kiev feels like home to me. And I am a Ukrainian with Hungarian roots, but I am a Ukrainian citizen. And unfortunately, what you mentioned about Transcarpathia, Orban has a lot of influential to Transcarpathia, and I think you also feel when you visit Lviv or Western Ukraine. But I think in the next few years, it's impossible that Orban and his party will really influence to Ukraine, influence to Transcarpathia. Yeah, I need to say, Orban is Putin's puppet, not more. And he got and will give direction directly from Kremlin, from Russia. He represents anti-Ukrainian force, not only anti-democratic, but anti-Ukrainian force. Yeah. And he never respected, and today also not respect Ukrainians, but by the way, he also not respects other countries, other bordering countries, and as you know, he has also a very tough connection situation with Romania. I think it's a little bit harder than with Ukraine. Also, not a good connection with Slovenia, with Croatia, and also, by the way, with Slovakia, because Orban represents far right ideology, far right not only nationalist, but as I said before, fascist
Yeah.
ideology. And unfortunately, he poisoned a lot of Hungarians, but not only Hungarians, in Transcarpathia with this ideology. And he claimed to be Hungarians, only
Hmm.
Hungarians, not Ukrainians. And I hope this ideology also will be ended.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of the main politics of dictators is creating divide, right, and creating problems because that way the population is kind of like playing against each other and not against the government. So I'm sure that the idea that the sort of the incitement of hate and issues within the Transcarpathia region is obviously hopefully going to go away. Same as like Orban's constant comments that the Hungarian minority in Ukraine is not being respected and not given rights, which is absolutely not true. Actually, up until recently, they were allowed to have schooling in only Hungarian for a very long time, and now it's they have to start learning Ukrainian from fourth grade, which I think is quite flexible to begin with, because it's late in life to start learning the language of the country that you live in. So I do hope that these problems are going to be fixed. I guess that the conclusion of this conversation is: do you think that Orban and his government still have influence on the global scale? Because obviously they managed to for lack of a better word, screw things up for Europe and blackmail Europe and kind of go with this anti-Ukrainian rhetoric. But there has been this sort of fear that Orban and Trump, as we stated in the beginning, right, have this sort of coalition. So do you think, now that we've put that away, do you think that Orban and his government still have influence and are able to, I guess, create problems worldwide?
Only in media level, not more. I think Orban and his policy unable to create any threats or any real influence into world. Why? Hungary today not more than 9 million people. Hungary is the weakest country in the European Union, and Orban ideology today is really failed, totally failed, and today it's not attractive for neighboring, and not only neighboring, but also other countries. Orban is a real conspiracy, not more, and would like to avoid his end of his policy. And I think he has place only in one country, in Russia. And it also Hungarian journalist told me a few days ago, the next person in the queue to Moscow will be Orban after Sadat.
Well, yeah, yeah. Moscow does like giving asylum to dictators. Most recent is Bashar Assad. Well, thank you so much for this very insightful conversation. Honestly, it was very interesting to learn all of these facts because some of these things are very new to me in terms of Hungary. So thank you very much for joining me, and thank you for providing this valuable information for me and our viewers.
Thank you so much, Julia, for having me.
Well, hopefully, this conversation shed as much light to you about Hungary and the processes that are going on in there as it did to me, because I found out a lot from here. So if you enjoy conversations like these and you would like to find out more in the future episodes, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, put on all of your notifications and send this video to a friend as well as like it to give it an easier time navigating through the depths of the wide web so it can find its viewers. And of course, please leave your questions, suggestions, constructive criticism, and any comments you might have down below, because I read all of them and they help me greatly to understand what you guys want to hear about next. See you next time.